Alexander Volkanovski, and I said it right off the bat, already the greatest of all time, I think, in many people's estimation. The question was, and he was freely throwing it out there, am I the same guy? Can I still beat this new chapter of guys? He did so convincingly, I thought, tonight.
He definitely did. And, man, so much respect to him for doing that. These unanswered questions, we're going into these fights, going into this huge pay-per-view main event, coming off of 2 losses. That was in the back of his head. Am I still the guy? And he is. He reclaimed the throne, used his lead hand very intelligently with his jab, his hooks. An incredible performance, a championship performance.
Volkanovski went out there and he beat a Western boxer tonight in a mixed martial arts fight. Now, let me tell you what I meant. There was 25 minutes, and there's a chance I missed something. These are Chael stats, but Lopes did a grand total of 0 takedown attempts. He had a grand total of 0 submission attempts. He had 3 kicks. He had no elbows and no knees. He used a left and a right hand in a mixed martial arts fight. I was stunned, and I'm not kicking Lopes while he was down. I will just tell you, I was stunned at the lack of offense that he brought. He did not offer takedowns. He did not offer clinch work. He did not try to make this ugly. He stood there and looked as though he was looking for the one-punch knockout the entire night, and Volkanovski moved around, danced around, and picked him apart for 25 minutes.
Well, at 35 years old, Volkanovski fought one of the harder fights you can get into, where you're technically better, you're physically more dominant, you're faster, you have a better skill set overall, and you're across from a younger, stronger, harder puncher. That's an impossible fight, because you can fight perfect for most of the fight and still get caught. Those are impossible situations to be put in, and I thought he handled it perfectly.
I mean, Alexander Volkanovski is so sick of hearing this stat, but it is worth throwing out. In the history of the UFC, in title fights of 155 pounds and lower, these guys were, if you reach the age of 35 and over, they were 0-17. Why has that been so hard to do, and how did Alexander Volkanovski do it tonight?
Look, and I'm part of that stat. Last year, I'm 35 years old, going to a title fight, and I lose. I'm part of that stat. But to see Alex, the tenure he's had, the age he's at, fighting a young guy like this and reclaiming it, getting that belt back, man, it's so good to have one on the side for us.
There's so much to talk about here in terms of Volkanovski that I don't want to skip over the fact, because I think we just kind of throw it in there sometimes. The knockout losses, man. He's coming off of 2 knockout losses. And granted, it's Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. But how difficult is that? How difficult is come back and fight a guy like Diego Lopes, who is a knockout artist, and go out there and do it for 5 rounds?
This is such a celebration of Volkanovski, such a celebration of the greatest 45-pounder we've ever seen. And I got to really check my words, because there was moments tonight where I thought he looked old. There was moments tonight where his chin wasn't holding up. There was moments tonight where he was running away from a guy that was barely trying to attack him. I mean, there was moments that gave me pause. There was other moments, such as the jab, such as him going from orthodox to southpaw, landing everything, making the younger Lopes react to him, using the takedowns, using the dirty boxing, fighting a mixed martial arts fight. That was incredible, but I will just tell you, I didn't really watch this fight and think the old Volk was back. I thought the old Volk grabbed a title over a guy that maybe didn't put on his best performance. And Anthony, that might sound rude, but that's what I saw.
That might sound rude. Listen, when you get to the age of 35, and we're talking about these lower weight classes, most of these guys' game are based on their reaction time and their timing and their speed. If you get to 35, you're going to slow down just a tiny bit. And I wanted to bring this up yesterday, but I would have never, ever brought it up with Megan Olivi sitting here. But Joseph Benavidez, in my opinion, is one of the best mixed martial artists that we've ever seen.
Wow.
He's not any worse now than he was 5 years ago. But his timing and his reaction time and his speed went down just a tiny bit. That small little, that little tad makes a large difference at the highest level when you're fighting for titles. I think that's what Alexander Volkanovski ran into a little bit with a guy like Ilia Topuria, who's perfectly timed, who's super fast, and skilled and powerful enough to put him down.
Yeah.
All it takes is just that little bit of a timing miss.
And that's why the title fights are the marquee. I mean, of course, there's a belt and the shiny gold thing out there, but it's just the tiniest little details. That's why the judging is so crucial. One area also that we're talking about some of the age and the way that Alex was able to turn back the clock a little bit. How about in the wrestling? Because I was also a little bit surprised that he didn't look to wrestle a little bit more, especially when it was effective for him in the first round. Can you talk about, as you're getting older, what makes it harder to take a guy down? Is it more of an effort? Are you worried about your gas tank? And is that something? Because I feel like maybe years ago we would have seen Volk wrestle here, and we really didn't tonight.
He did. He attempted a good bit of takedowns, and I thought his entries were good. His timing was good, but I just thought Diego Lopes's down blocks, underhooks were great as well. I know Diego went to Oklahoma and put in time on the mats with some of the best wrestlers in the world, and I think that paid dividends tonight. in his takedown defense. I think Volk still has that. Like I said, his timing looked great. I just think Diego was tough to get down.
And there was a little bit of confusion there because Volkanovski was closing the distance, and he was going for body locks. He looked like he was going for takedowns, but then he was coming off with strikes. And so in hindsight, it was almost like the takedowns were just attempts for the strike. So, Brett, I wasn't totally sure on his offense, but overall, Volk brought all of his tools. He threw feet and he threw elbows. He kicked him in the balls one time. I mean, not for nothing. He did everything you could do. He was grabbing the fence. He was poking ice. He was doing everything that you could do, and Lopes simply did not. Lopes stalked him. He had his chin down. He had his hands up. He did some things well, but all he did for 25 minutes was look for a knockout. I do not want to be too critical of him, but I think when he regroups and watches this, I think if he builds back to a title shot, he can do better. I think he's a better fighter than he showed tonight.
And Anthony, I want you to speak on that. What do you think he's going to see when he rewatches this fight?
I think he's going to be a little frustrated. I think he's going to be frustrated with himself at maybe his lack of urgency earlier in the fight, because the more aggressive he got, the more successful he was. But he didn't start doing that until round 4, end of round 3. And I think he'll be frustrated with his effort. I think he's going to see a lot of things that he can fix. I think that he should have offensively wrestled. I think he should have kicked more to the legs. There was a bunch of things he could fix, but I think he's going to end up being a better fighter after this.